Nothing in life gets me more confused than Italian copyright laws in the 70s and 80s. It feels like Italians could take any popular American franchise, make an unrelated movie, and then claim it was a sequel. This was Italy's Dawn of the Dead 2, their Evil Dead 3, Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3, and this is Alien 2. A lot of these films weren't made with the intention of being sequels, but instead, they were finished films that companies slapped pre-existing IPs on to make a few extra bucks. Sleazy, immoral, but extremely fascinating. Who owns what? Who copies who? It doesn't matter, at least it didn't during the 70s and 80s, before the advent of the internet. Like, how are the right holders in America ever gonna find out about some sleazy, crappy Italian sequel? Nowadays, that crap don't fly. You'll get a cease and desist before you even finish your thought. But there was a brief period where we got some head-scratchingly weird sequels. And I love it. And yeah, I ridicule Italy a little bit harder because of the plethora of examples of taking an unrelated movie and shoving it into a franchise it has no business being part of. But Italy wasn't the only culprit doing this. Yep, America was known for doing it too. So let's turn that mirror back onto ourselves and take a look at an example. And even though there are a few, let's take a look at Beyond the Door 2. And spoiler alert, it's not called Beyond the Door 2 everywhere. Beyond the Door was a 1974 Italian Exorcist ripoff, and in the United States, it did really well. Probably better than it should have, and for a brief time, it even outpaced the box office earnings of The Exorcist. I ragged on Beyond the Door when I reviewed it eons ago, but honestly, it's a pretty awesome little flick. At its worst, it's an entertaining mess full of absurd dialogue and what the fuck moments, but at its best, it's genuinely creepy and effective. Some of its imagery is extremely haunting for a mid-70s film. Beyond the Door's writer and director of Video Astenesis never made a sequel and had no real desire to make a sequel. Well, when something makes a lot of money, greedy people get desperate and will find any way to milk out all potential earnings. So Film Ventures International, the American distribution company that owned the American rights for Beyond the Door, bought another Italian horror film that was completely unrelated besides some possession themes and named it Beyond the Door 2 to try to capitalize off the success of the original. The sequel was to be released in 1977, the same year The Exorcist 2 was being released. Ah, I see what you did there, you greedy sons of a bitch. But as fate would have it, The Exorcist 2 flopped so hard that Beyond the Door 2 was shelved for 2 years and only saw a limited release in 1979. So what little Italian film did the American distributors buy and rebrand? None other than Mario Bava's Shock. Yes, Mario Bava, the godfather of the Giallo, one of the most influential Italian horror directors ever. And Shock was the last film that he ever directed. Not the last release, but the last that he directed. Such a shame that the horror icon's last mark on the genre was rebranded as an unofficial Exorcist ripoff just to make a quick buck by American distributors. Brutal. With that background out of the way, let's take a look at Beyond the Door 2, aka Shock, and see if it's worth the watch or if it should be forgotten to time. Welcome to the HellBound Horror Show. Shock opens on Marco and his mother Dora, played by Daria Nicolodi. Daria Nicolodi is a staple of Gialli and was in a ton of Dario Argento films like Deep Red, Inferno, Tenebrae, and Phenomena. Marco, Dora, and Dora's new husband just moved into this new house, and Marco plays around in all the different rooms. And hey, is that Belial? Through some dialogue, we find out that it's been 7 years since Dora's husband committed suicide, and instead of selling the house she and her deceased husband had, Dora, her son Marco, and her new husband Bruno moved back into the old house. It took many years for Dora to recover from the loss of her late husband, but he was a junkie, and one is to expect heartbreak with junkies. You know, because drugs are bad for you. In the beginning of the film, everything is fine. Dora, Bruno, and Marco are a loving family, but as the film progresses, both Marco and Dora begin to feel the effects of an evil spirit. Dora feels as if her ex-husband's ghost is watching her and is slowly trying to make her mad. Marco begins to talk to some kind of ghostly apparition and begins to act strangely. He tells his mother that she's going to die, and he performs some weird voodoo on Bruno. Shock is a slow burn ghost film with light elements of possession sprinkled in. It doesn't feel that far removed from The Exorcist. Worried mother, possessed child. Honestly, it feels closer to The Exorcist than it does to Beyond the Door. But I digress. Outside of a slow descent into madness that culminates into a smorgasbord of pulse-pounding revelations and spine-tingling chills, there isn't much to say about the plot of Shock. The story is carefully and slowly unraveled to the audience, but when you sum it all up, it doesn't add too much in the way of plot. Shock isn't a complex, overly bloated narrative, but instead its focus is how to string along and unravel a simple yet effective story. And how the story unfolds is pretty great. The tension is tangible and the character's descent into madness, while absurd by the end, is completely believable. With each new bit of information a character receives, either by experiencing the horror or by finding something out about the mystery, they begin to change and to slip further into the darkness. Why is Dora's ex-husband haunting the house? Is his evil spirit the only evil spirit at play? Will Marco fall deeper into the possession? Will Dora and her family survive? And will solving the mystery in this heart-pounding conclusion make up for all the dull, slow burn bits in the first hour of the film? 1977 Shock was a roller coaster ride for me. There were moments when honestly I was getting a bit bored and thought I might just fall asleep, but then there were other moments that made my heart almost leap from my chest. Shock does a really good job luring you in with such a calm demeanor, and then it slaps you in the face with genuinely terrifying moments. Daria Nicolodi has a fantastic performance. In fact, the limited cast is all really exceptional. Performances are believable and grounded.
Bruno non è mica mio padre, è il secondo marito di mia madre, non lo sapevi?
As you may know, Italian films at this time never recorded dialogue live on set. Instead, they would have each actor speak their native tongue while filming and dub everyone in post. I watched the Italian dub with English subtitles, and all the Italian voice performances sounded fair to me. I'm not sure how the English dub holds up, but I assume it's probably pretty bad. The music is pretty good too. At times it sounds very much like Goblin and was made from a band called I Libre, which actually had Goblin's drummer Walter Martino in it. The music is mostly haunting, pretty, and melodic. But at times can really drive up the tension. Cinematography is beautiful, but what else would you expect from Mario Bava? Being a former cinematographer, Bava has such an eye for framing, lighting, and style. He is known for his beautiful films, and Shock is no exception. I also want to note that Mario Bava's son, Lamberto Bava, also helped with a directing role. Mario was notorious for not liking actors, so a lot of the dialogue scenes were actually directed by Lamberto. The story was actually written by Lamberto and his friends in the late 60s. They wrote a one-page treatment about objects being possessed and titled it It's Always Cold at 33 Clock Street. Lamberto and I both agree that is a much better and more original name than the generic Shock. While deliberately slow and methodical, Shock has plenty of amazing scenes and sequences. Some of my favorites include when she cuts herself while pressing down on piano keys and finds a razor blade wedged between the keys. Okay, that's officially a new fear unlocked. Another standout moment is later in the film when Dora's having a dream. It's a trippy sequence that looks phenomenal, with her hair sort of flowing, giving up surrealistic vibes. Mario Bava actually invented this sort of technique and drew it up just one random night. It's truly captivating, and other directors would go on to use the same effect.
Fatta poi da Michele, che ha lavorato parecchio con me, anche di più di quello che si dice, mi ha fatto piacere.
Speaking of borrowing from Shock, do you remember Annabelle from 2014? What a dumb movie, but it had a legitimately great jump scare with this. Scary and effective, and then The Prodigy from 2019 ripped it off.
Come here, Mommy.
But wait, there's more. What if I told you there was a movie from the 1970s that actually did it first? Just take a look at this scene from Mario Bava's Shock and try to tell me that this wasn't the inspiration. Mario Bava's Shock is a fantastic ghost story full of mystery, tension, sadness, and fittingly shock. Yes, it may be slow at times, but the highs are pretty fantastic and presented only in a way that a horror legend like Mario Bava could accomplish. There's a style to it. While the story may be bare bones and even lifeless at times, Bava finds a way to keep the audience engaged and finds a way to keep this shock above schlock. And that's all I have for tonight. So thank you so much for watching, and stay spooky, everyone.